that they've raised, particularly with where he made his money with credit default swaps and whatnot. And so we look at these four candidates, and these are all the guys that are on TV that are really the most viable candidates,
right,
and yet
right.
they all have this baggage in their background. And you know what? It really boils down to good people. I mean, really good people who don't have all this kind of nonsense in their background. They don't want to run because they don't want to subject themselves to the type of disclosure requirements that are involved as a candidate for personal finances and whatnot, and this media scrutiny on family and their business and whatnot. And while it's important that we do have a lot of that stuff vetted, it does in fact keep a lot of people who maybe don't even have issues in their background, but they just don't want to have to be subjected to it in order to put their names forward as a candidate. And it's an unfortunate result of our system.
Well, the thing that I really liked about Marco Rubio was he was not afraid to be the first conservative voice. I mean, he spoke out and spoke about really conservative values. He was very vocal about it before anyone else really jumped on the bandwagon. And so it's interesting.
Yeah, and Marco, I've had my issues with Marco, which a lot of your viewers may be aware of. It's been very public, and I still haven't decided on who I'm going to vote for in that race. I'm certainly not going to vote for Charlie Crist.
Right.
I'm certainly not going to vote for Jeff Green or Kendrick Meek.
Right.
I guess my options kind of boil down to Marco Rubio, or do I cast what probably amounts to a throwaway vote for the Libertarian candidate, Alex Snitker, who's running the race. And he's very fond of pointing out, Alex Snitker is very fond of pointing out, he's the only candidate in this race, major candidate, if you want to characterize him as one, who is not under some cloud of controversy or investigation by some criminal investigative arm of the government. And at some level you got to look at a candidate like Alex and say, yeah, and that's important, because these other guys with all their shenanigans, it just doesn't jive. But Marco, you're right. He's a very good communicator. He's talking about a lot of important issues that are important to conservatives. He was one of the first candidates that I've seen or heard in almost my professional career who's been honest about how we're going to reform Social Security and Medicare. And he took a big chance at doing that, because most candidates, they say, well, I want to preserve, protect Social Security for current and future generations, but I don't want to raise the retirement age. I don't want to raise the Social Security payroll tax. I don't want to means test. They say all the things that they don't want to do, which are really the only possible solutions to make Social Security solvent long into the future. And it's disingenuous for any candidate, Republican or Democrat, to stand up and say, I want to preserve and protect Social Security for current and future generations, but I don't want to cut. I don't want to raise the retirement age. It's just a flat out lie, because it cannot be done. And so Marco said, well, yeah, I think we should look at those things. He didn't say, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do, but he said, we have to look at those things. We need to be honest. And so I give him credit for that.
Right.
I look at Marco and I try to be objective and say that, despite his past indiscretions, he's got some good ideas. And his 100 ideas when he was the leader of the State House was a great effort to try to bring to light issues that hadn't been really looked at and discussed in a meaningful manner. And they didn't all pass, and some of them weren't even considered, but he got the dialogue going, and I do give him credit for that.
Right. It's interesting. He was on Greta Van Susteren and did a great job answering Harry Reid when Harry Reid came out, and he really spoke for the Latino vote, and he was very good, very appealing. Every time you see him, he's very appealing. So, I hope he makes it.
Well, he's I've complimented him on his communication ability. He's kind of the Ronald Reagan of the 21st century.
He really is.
I mean, his really ability to communicate a message is just phenomenal. And I think that voters will certainly see that, and it'll be appealing to them. The big issue for Marco is going to be Charlie Crist, because Charlie Crist, he wind tests just about everything. He licks his finger and sticks it up and see which way is the wind blowing.
Exactly.
And so he's constantly changing as the winds and the sentiment of the electorate change. So too does Charlie Crist. But I'm a firm believer that we don't need all of these politicians who only give us what we need. We need politicians who, who give us what we want. We need politicians who are at times going to show true leadership by giving us what we need. It's, kind of a spoonful of medicine, if you will. And Charlie Crist certainly is not going to do that. He's constantly, if he's elected, and I think that he probably will be, I'm kind of disappointed to admit, but he'll go up to Washington and he'll just do whatever is going to most benefit Charlie Crist by keeping the electorate happy with whatever it is he's doing, because he's giving them what they want, not what they need.
I think Charlie Crist has really become a Democrat. I mean, he's running on an independent ticket, but he's picked up a lot of the teachers union, a lot of other unions, and a lot of Democratic support. So
he is, and that's really where his base is now. And
really
he's certainly not going to be talking about the issues that conservative Republican voters are concerned with about taxes and debt. The social issues notwithstanding, I mean, he's not talking about those either, but those are not really the people that he needs to appeal to in order to win in this three-way race. His base at this point is the kind of center-right Democrats and moderate/independents who don't really have a party loyalty, and so he's just going to try to appeal to them by giving them what they want.
What do you think? What do you think about the Republicans picking up seats now in November? You think that's going to be a big landslide? Do you think?
Well, we certainly have a tremendous opportunity. There have been a lot of gaffes of the Obama administration and the Reid-Pelosi leadership in the House and the Senate and Congress in Washington. Historically, in off-election years, non-presidential election years, the party not in power generally picks up seats. So the historical trend is that we will. I think that will certainly occur this year. The question is, how many? Will it be enough to give the Republicans control of the United States House of Representatives or the U.S. Senate? They're both tremendous challenges to get the numbers that we need in order to regain the majority. But there's certainly a very anti-Democrat, anti-incumbent, anti-Washington view. The rise of the Tea Party movement, all of those things should play well into the hands of Republicans. The question is, are we nominating enough viable, credible candidates who are going to provide a fresh voice and new ideas to counter, the big government, raise more taxes, liberal / practically socialist ways of the Obama administration and Reid-Pelosi in the House and Senate leadership. That remains to be seen.
I think we are. When you go back even 8 months ago, the conservative message was not crystallized like it is now. I mean, the conservative message, it's a real voice now, and it's huge.
Yeah.
And we're talking about not only the Tea Party movement, but just the conservative voice across the country. It's almost all-encompassing now. You don't hear the liberal squeak. So.
Well, and if they stay on message, and that they're going to fight Obama's attempts to take more control of various sectors of our economy and raise your taxes, then that'll be a good thing, and hopefully we will take charge and get control of both of those bodies, or at least one of them. But something that that conservative and Republicans have to recognize, and as much as we want to educate and get Democrats to realize that we cannot provide all of these entitlements across the board and be everything to everyone in the form of more government handouts. And that's a shift, a paradigm shift for the Democrats that we as conservatives and Republicans need to project and keep talking about and get them to recognize their need for change. At the same time, we as Republicans have got to stop being the party of no when it comes to issues like taxes. And I say that, and I'm sure some people are going, how could that be? But the reality of the situation is we are sitting on a $1 trillion federal deficit, and debt rather, that we're going to have to pay back. And it's only going to continue to grow if we look at the numbers and the way Obama and Reid-Pelosi and the Democrats in Congress have been going. It's going to continue to grow, by some estimations, up to $20 trillion by the time Obama's first term is over. And that's preposterous. And the only way that we're going to be able to rein in not just the spending, but pay down the debt is if we raise taxes. And you know, I say that not being happy about the idea of paying more,
Right.
but if we're able to get the Democrats to stop spending and we start focusing on more of the government revenues going to pay down the debt, then we as conservatives have to be able to compromise and say, and in order to do so in a meaningful fashion, we're going to have to raise taxes. Because let me simplify it for your viewers. It's really simple. We have all this debt in large part because we like all these handouts. I mean,
Right.
the American people's insatiable appetite for more that they don't have to pay for is the reason why we have all this debt. And the politicians are more than happy to oblige and give more. You want prescription drug coverage? Sure, we'll give it to you and we'll let the next 3 or 4 generations pay for it. You want universal health care? Sure, we'll give that to you and let the next generation pay for it. You want a high-speed bullet train that costs $3 billion to run from Tampa to Orlando? Sure, and we'll let the next, number of generations pay for it. You get the picture.
Yeah.
If we paid as we went, it would have required those politicians who give us all of these programs to say, okay, well, we're going to give you prescription drug coverage, but we're also going to raise your payroll tax. You want a bullet train? Sure, but we're going to raise your income taxes in order to do it. And instead of making the tough decisions on whether or not this is really necessary, and if it is, taxes increases are going to have to be a part of it, the politicians say, sure, we'll give it to you, and we'll just deficit spend and we'll let the next generation worry about it.
Well, how do you raise taxes when the joblessness, especially in this area, they're talking about that it's 22%.
Well, and that's a tremendous point, and certainly in this economy, it's not the time to be raising taxes.
What about cutting taxes?
Well, cutting taxes, there are a lot of studies and a lot of true believers that would argue that cutting taxes actually trickles down and that we do see economic growth when we do cut taxes. And I certainly feel like, if I had more in my pocket on April 15th in the form of discretionary spending by Chris Ingram, that's a better thing than allowing the federal government to take that money and spend it on whatever program that's going to get some clown in Washington, D.C. reelected. But it's going to require a compromise of a change in beliefs among liberals and conservatives so that the liberals understand we got to cut, we got to quit trying to be everything to everyone, and the conservatives are going to have to say, and in doing so, we might also have to raise taxes in order to pay down the debt and all this largesse that we've been living off of for the last 20, 30 years. And it's not strictly a blame on the Democrats for all of this spending. I mean, the Republicans under President Bush, they spent like a bunch of drunken Democrats with somebody else's credit card for a long time.
Right.
And so now we, need to clean up our act and try to get the Democrats to do theirs too, because if you look at historically, all great nations, superpowers, individual leaders, who run dynasties going back to the days of, Attila the Hun or the Mongols or the British Empire, the Soviet Union, they all fall either because a superpower or a military power rather that they didn't perceive as being strong enough to defeat them wipes them out, or their economy, mostly because of deficit spending, wipes them out because they're unable to sustain all of the largesse that their citizenry wants. And with a global economy, if we default on our loans as a country, we're not going to be able to do business with anyone, and that will be the downfall of our nation if we don't get this reined in.
What about Chris Christie? What do you think about him?
I think he's fantastic from up in New Jersey. He's, the really appealing thing to him, I think, is that it's not that he has all these great ideas. I mean, he has ideas, but they're not new.
That's right.
It's just that he's communicating in a manner that is very straightforward. He's calling it like it is. He is running some risk in alienating certain segments of voters by being so direct and giving them the straight dope and the truth. And we need that. I think Americans are yearning for it.
I think they are yearning for it, Chris. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So maybe it'll rub off on some of these guys in Florida here.
I hope so. And but listen, it's been great. We could just go on forever. But listen, thank you so much for
Always
joining
a pleasure.
us and taking time out
Thank you.
come talk to our audience. Thank
Happy
you so
to do
much.
It. You're welcome.